Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode. This is Take It to the Hizzy Fantasy Football, TITTH, number 14, number 14. I'm your host, Justin Bruni. Today we're going to be going over our Week 6 must-starts. Got a pretty decent Thursday night football game last night. Giants gave us a little bit of a show there early on. That was nice to see. Gave Brady some trouble, interception, forced fumble, touchdown. Pretty solid. Enjoyed that. Watched the Patriots throttle the second half, hit the over there. That was nice. My bonus pick the other day as well in hockey also hit Capitals and Predators over the 5.5 goals. That was nice to see. Some pretty decent Thursday night as far as the betting was going. All right, jumping into the quarterbacks here. First matchup I'm looking at is the Cardinals and the Falcons. I like both quarterbacks in this matchup. Go ahead and fire up Matt Ryan and Kyler Murray. Both defenses not playing great. Obviously, we saw Houston play really well up against the Falcons defense last week. So I look for really positive game flow on both sides for both the quarterback positions for the Falcons and the Cardinals with Murray and Ryan. The defenses have been really bad on both sides. Like I said, the Arizona defense, just really lacking consistent play in the secondary, and the Falcons. Man, they're getting cut up all over the field. I look for all the fantasy players to be live here for both sides. The Julio, Ridley, Hooper, even Sanu this week, and then with the Cardinals, DJ, David Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald, Demir Bird is back, Christian Kirk is practicing, so looks like they'll have some more weapons this week. Should be a high scoring matchup. I think the over-under's in the middle of the 50s. So, Vegas is expecting a high-scoring game. So I guess we should as well. Go ahead and fire up both of those quarterbacks pretty comfortably. No concern. Next matchup where I'm starting both quarterbacks is Jacksonville at New Orleans. Gardner Minshew and Teddy Bridgewater. Talk about Jalen Ramsey practicing. I'm not really sure what's going on with that situation. I don't know if I really trust ownership's word on the situation just yet. I've also, read some things where Jalen Ramsey's talked about, he's, going to be the final say, when it comes down to his body or whatnot. I still feel like he's been holding back. I don't know if it's like how serious the back issue really is. But at the same time, I have said that he needs to get on the field and play if he wants to show some trade value. So I understand that he may have to play. That could decrease Teddy Bridgewater's value a little bit, but I like the over in this game. I think it's going to be a more passing-friendly game. The Saints have allowed a lot of yards in the air. Gardner Minshew's just on fire. The last 3 matchups have been, a lot more difficult on paper. Carolina, Tennessee, Denver, and now he's got New Orleans, Cincinnati coming up. I can't remember who's after that. I think it's Houston after Cincinnati. But yeah, has some good matchups coming up. Has played really consistently, threw for almost 400 yards last week. Wow, did not expect that. Did put the ball on the ground 3 times, Minshew, but at the same time, the play's just been really consistent. Hasn't thrown an interception since week 1. Is playing on the road. Does have like Marshawn Lattimore in the secondary. Could be following around DJ Chark. I'm not sure what he'll do there. I'm pretty confident in starting Chark this week as well. But Lattimore, I think, will stay on one side of the field most likely, and probably be more lined up with Dede Westbrook or Marquise Lee more consistently. They're mixing in Dede Westbrook and DJ Chark into the slot, pretty consistently, one over the other, just kind of back and forth. And DJ Chark has done a lot of damage out of the slot thus far, so look to fire him up as well. I like both quarterbacks in this matchup. Bridgewater going up against the Jacksonville defense. Like I said, it's not great on paper, with Jalen Ramsey back in the lineup. But again, I think that his workload may still be limited this week. He may even maybe not pull himself out of the game, but my back, something's tweaking here. Get him, not necessarily get himself pulled, but get himself some limited snaps. I'm not really sure how that situation is going to go. We may still even want to follow it into Sunday. I just think that both quarterbacks are live in that game. I'm going to be taking the over in that game. I think it's somewhere in the mid-40s, like 44. So definitely thinking that game is going to be more high scoring. So definitely grab both quarterbacks there, Bridgewater and Gardner Minshew. And then kind of rounding things out here, I got like Lamar Jackson and Jimmy Garoppolo. Lamar Jackson going up against Cincinnati, allowing the 8th most fantasy points to the quarterback position. Lamar, should be able to add some value on his legs as well. Kyler last week rushed for 10 carries, 93 yards, and a touchdown, at the quarterback position. So could see some value for him there. Give me 240, 250 passing yards, 50 to 70 rushing yards, and 3 total touchdowns for Lamar Jackson up against Cincinnati. Should be a pretty good matchup, actually. I think that matchup might get high scoring as well. Ravens defense not been playing very well recently, allowing a ton of yards. So could be a live play for Andy Dalton that game as well. Just think that he's just so darn mistake oriented. I don't want to feel like I have to start him any week really, unless I'm in a desperate spot. Then you got Jimmy Garoppolo, making the must-start list, just showing that the offense is really efficient. They're really balancing things out with the run and the pass game. They don't ask him to do too much. And in this game against the Rams, I do think that they could be chasing some points. If the Rams offense gets going, and if the Rams offense doesn't get going, if it's kind of a slower game, I still think that they can finish in the red zone with a couple of touchdowns. I think that he's got potential to get 3 touchdowns, probably just under 300 passing yards, like somewhere like 260 to 280 passing yards this week up against the Rams. I think that should be a pretty good matchup. I'm not sure what the over-under is. We'll get that to the preview show, but I do like Jimmy Garoppolo this week, just showing that he's got some consistent value in that offense, the way that they're balancing things out with the run and the pass game. So I like all those guys: Teddy Bridgewater, Lamar Jackson, Jimmy Garoppolo, Gardner Minshew, Teddy Bridgewater, Kyler Murray, and Matt Ryan. Fire all those guys up. Quarterbacks you need to start this week. On to the running backs. First up, we got Joe Mixon, kind of talking up that Ravens defense not being very good recently. Should have a lot of opportunity up the middle of the field. They're allowing 7 touchdowns to the rushing attack. That's tied most for the league. I think there's like 3 or 4 teams that have allowed 7 touchdowns. So to running backs to the rushing attack. So a lot of opportunity there. Could see Joe Mixon find pay dirt on the ground, or just catching one out of the backfield. And the Ravens have allowed a touchdown in 4 of their last 5 games to the rushing attack, including 3 to Nick Chubb a couple of weeks ago, allowing 4.5 yards per carry. Reasons go on and on. Start Joe Mixon this week. You should be able to fire him up pretty comfortably. I know his box scores haven't been great recently. May give you reason to doubt him or get rid of him. I think that he's a good buy low candidate, based off of his performance. Obviously, you're going to have to give up some stock for him because he is an RB1 in the league, and he does get that volume. So you'll have to pay up for him, but he's a guy that I'd be willing to go out and get right now. So fire him up, no worries. Next up, you got Damian Williams. Should be used quite a bit this week in the passing game up against the Texans. We saw the running backs get some play last week. Devontae Freeman had a pass-catching touchdown up against the Texans last week. So I think Damian Williams will have a little bit more usage this week. I think you can start McCoy too. I think both of them will get a fair amount of play, but I do like Damian Williams a little bit more. He is healthy, been practicing in full for a couple weeks now, so he's good to go. Still not really sure on the status of Watkins, on Hill. If both of those guys out, I'd expect him to have even a bigger day, just because he'd be a consistent piece in the passing game even more. I'd expect him to get at least like 10 targets if both of those guys were out. If one of them is in, I still see him having a pretty good workload. Still not really sure on Hill yet. As we get closer and closer, I'm getting more doubtful on him. So I do think that he's going to be out. And Watkins, nothing really promising. Been missing practice. Hasn't been really showing us any signs that he's going to be there at 100% at least. So we'll see what we get out of him. Probably going to be a full game time call on him. Next up, we have Austin Ekeler. Still starting him every week. He had a ton of targets last week in the double digits. I want to say like 15 or 16 targets last week at the running back position. Their wide receivers are banged up. Mike Williams is healthy. He got a good workload last week. But I still like Austin Ekeler a lot. I'm not as confident as about Melvin Gordon as I was. Melvin Gordon came in, didn't do a ton with his workload last week. The front 7 for Pittsburgh, pretty strong. I think they're going to try to really push things to the outside, and it's going to lend more upside for Ekeler. They can really clog up the middle with the guys that they have there. But running backs are doing damage against them. Steelers are allowing the 12th most rush yards up against the running back position. So there is value there for both of those guys, but I still see Austin Ekeler having a bigger week. He's got more of a role in the passing game. Doesn't or didn't get many carries last week, but I think that carry share could go down if Melvin Gordon really doesn't get it going, and I'm not sure if he does early on in this game, just based off of the way that the Steelers are going to attack him. Really coming downhill on him early on. Bringing blitzes, a lot of pressure. I don't see them running a lot of prevent coming out. They don't have a lot of promise on the offensive side of the ball. So I see the Steelers trying to start playing some offense on defense and really getting more aggressive with their play. So look for a little bit more upside for Austin Ekeler this week, still over Melvin Gordon. He's going to be a must start. Obviously, he's like in the top 5 for running back scoring, so it's pretty easy to not put him on your bench, right? Just based off of his performances thus far. But there are some doubters out there, or there are some people that have both of them, Melvin Gordon and Ekeler, because of this exact situation. They had to have that assurance that if he came back, you got both sides of the tree, or both sides of the table, sorry. So yeah, keep firing up Ekeler, no issues there. He's going to be solid this week. I think he's going to outperform Melvin Gordon. Next up, Chris Carson did come up on the injury report this week. They put a limited session in for Rashad Penny and Chris Carson. I think they're just resting him. They're listing a shoulder injury for Chris Carson, so we're going to want to follow that into Sunday. But as long as he's good to go, he's been on fire. They've given him, 27 carries, 22 carries the past 2 weeks, almost, just about 50 there. No fumbles in the last 2 games. That's pretty solid, right? The Browns allowed 6 rush yards per carry last week, like 240 rushing yards or something crazy like that. They're allowing the 3rd most yards to runners in the league. It's a must start for Chris Carson. Really, any Seattle running back that is the guy that's going there. If somehow Chris Carson just winds up just trending all the way down and he's somehow out this week, you want to start whoever's there, because there's going to be a lot of opportunity up against this Cleveland defense. Fire up Chris Carson as long as he's in the lineup and we're not seeing any really negative red flags coming Sunday. Okay, next up is Chris Thompson. Absolutely firing him up this week up against the Miami defense, who's allowing the most fantasy points to the running back position. Tied for the lead league for most touchdowns allowed to the running back position. Chris Thompson has received 5 targets in the last 5 games, at least 35 targets, 25 catches in the last 5 games. Just has a consistent role there. I think that he has a little bit more upside over Adrian Peterson. Should be able to provide a few more chunk plays than Adrian Peterson. I do see them being kind of dead even once they get into the red zone. You could see a sweep to Chris Thompson. You could see a power run up the middle from Adrian Peterson. So once they get into that space, they're pretty even on their opportunities. But I do like Chris Thompson a little bit more this week. I think you can fire up both of them in DFS this week. Miami defense just really, really bad up against the run. Segueing into wide receivers, they're also really bad up against wide receivers. Terry McLaurin, fire him up this week for the Redskins, playing the Miami defense. Again, really, really bad. They've allowed 12 touchdowns to wide receivers so far this season. Case Keenum coming back has shown a strong connection with Terry McLaurin before they both went down with their injuries. Should give us a little bit more confidence from what they've shown us so far. So definitely fire up both of those guys, Chris Thompson, Terry McLaurin. I'm not going to be trying to dive too much deeper into my Washington players. Paul Richardson, maybe steals a touchdown. Not sure if the volume will be there for a guy like him. I think Terry McLaurin will have a big day, 7 to 8 catches, somewhere around 100 yards, and potentially 2 touchdowns, but definitely 1 touchdown for sure. Okay, next up is Michael Gallup. Just really showing that he's an X factor in this offense. First couple weeks before getting hurt, he was 7 for 7, 158 yards week 1. Week 2, 6 for 8 catches, 68 yards in week 2. And then when he came back from his injury last week, 7 for 14, 113 yards and a touchdown. Just showing that he is really confident in this scheme, in this system. He has a role here, has a strong connection with Dak. They move the ball really well when he's on the field. It just looks like a completely different team, versus when you have like Dev Smith and Randall Cobb out there on the other side. So I really like what they have going there in Dallas. If he's healthy, the offense should be rolling. I do think that he'll have a good week this week. I still think he might be limited to maybe like 6 or 8 catches, but fire up a touchdown this week for Michael Gallup for sure. I think he finds pay dirt and finishes somewhere around the 100-yard mark, 115-yard mark. Should have a big week. Next up is DJ Chark. Kind of mentioned this before. Want to get a piece of him in this game. He's just really hot right now. He's like wide receiver 5 on the year. Saints are allowing the 11th most yards to the receivers. He's playing a lot out of the slot, getting a lot of opportunity there on both sides of the field. Scored touchdowns coming out of the slot last week, both of his touchdowns actually. Saints are allowing 7.5 yards per catch. It's like 9th worst in the league. So there's some shore up there. They allow like less receptions, so that's why that number is a little bit higher. Lattimore, I don't believe is going to follow Chark, so I think that there's still some upside for him. It does downgrade D.D. Westbrook a little bit, so I like DJ Chark more this week over D.D. Westbrook, but I still think that D.D. Westbrook is live. You know, if you are limited on your bench options, people on buys and things like that, I think you can feel confident starting him. And I think both of them are live in DFS as well. I just think that DJ Chark is just a little bit more ahead of him, you know, really just based off of his play thus far. You know, just been super consistent, you know, scoring touchdowns, taking the ball over the top, burning the secondaries consistently. And he's just getting more and more of a workload every week. So look for him to get stronger as the season goes on. Definitely firing him up this week. Give me some DJ Chark. Next up is Jarvis Landry. Has been pretty consistent, actually, despite not having any touchdowns. I do think he's due for a touchdown this week up against the Seattle defense. So give me a touchdown for him. He's had, last week, 6 targets. Week before that, 10, 9, 7, 7, you know, all the way back to week 1. You know, he gets looked at, and it's just that the efficiency isn't there, you know. 4 catches, 8 catches, 3 catches, 3 catches, 4 catches. You know, and the yardage is there, 75 yards, 167 yards, 62 yards, 67 yards week 1. Only 1 week under 50 yards, you know, as a wide receiver. That's not bad, really, you know, when you're looking at the wide receiver position. But we want to see him finish with a touchdown. We want to see him get more volume in the passing game. We liked what we saw up against Baltimore. But I think that does happen this week up against Seattle. I think that they're going to be looking for some consistent means to move the chains. And I think that they're going to try to lock out Odell Beckham Jr. pretty early on. Maybe Odell does catch a touchdown, but I still think there will be more volume for Jarvis Landry this week. I think it's a comeback week from, you know, pretty similar week to that Baltimore game. Last week up against San Francisco, definitely got bottled up. You know, only 4 catches, 75 yards, but I think he pops off up again this week up against Seattle. So fire up Jarvis Landry, no concern there. Really confident to play him this week. Next up, Auden Tate. Auden Tate, you still got AJ Green out. Still a lot of value up against the Baltimore defense that's allowing a ton of yards. I think the game flow is going to be there for both sides. I think Baltimore is going to go up early. Bengals are going to be chasing points. We saw Auden Tate targeted in the red zone twice last week. He did drop a first quarter potential touchdown. He was, you know, wide open, just had to take a couple of steps forward with the ball right through his hands. That was unfortunate. Wasn't feeling really good about him, but did redeem himself in the second half and saved his fantasy day with a touchdown. 3 catches, 26 yards, and a touchdown. You know, he is going to be more of a red zone threat, but he has shown in previous weeks, you know, 50 yards week 4, 88 yards week 3, 4 catches, 6 catches, you know, kind of mixing that in. That's the type of volume I'd like to see him top off with a touchdown, but we'll see what happens this week. I really like the matchup against Baltimore. Like I said, the game flow should be there. Ravens are allowing the 2nd most yards to the receivers this year. And like I said, he started in the red zone a few times. You got to like that value there. Tyler Boyd's going to get shadowed a little bit more once you get closer to the goal line. So seeing that Dalton did look his way a few times should give us a little bit more confidence. I am firing him up again this week. He is a must start. Okay, on to the tight ends. These tight ends not so great. You know, you have the top guys in the tight ends, that really easy starters like Hooper, Mark Andrews if he's healthy, Will Disley, Kelsey, Ertz, Kittle. You know, those are really like the locks every week, and I'm not going to just give you the locks every week. So really these are like, you know, your deeper plays, you know, with some of these guys out on buys, you know, Darren Waller, the Indy guys, Ebron and Doyle are both out. Bears are out. Not sure how many people are starting Trey Burton. So, you know, there are some guys out that, you know, aren't typically there. So these are really just more like some deeper plays we got to fill in our lineup. Who can we use, right? So first up, Greg Olsen, playing Tampa Bay this week, did have a strong performance against Tampa Bay in week 2, but did have Cam Newton there. Had 6 catches for 110 yards, no touchdown. I do like the value there. You know, go back to the well, right? Feed Greg Olsen, Kyle Allen. Let's see if he can get another touchdown. I'm a little bit less confident in Kyle Allen going forward, just because he hasn't really shown as much since his 4 touchdown game up against Arizona. And when he did so, he was finding Greg Olsen. But the last couple of weeks, Greg Olsen, you know, 2 targets last week, no catches, 4 targets the week before that, 2 catches, 5 yards. Ouch, not good. But I'm so confident in him this week. I think that he can get right up against this Tampa Bay defense that he has already shown that he can burn. So Bucs have allowed the most receiving yards overall. So there's opportunity there. Fire him up, no concern whatsoever. Next up is Gerald Everett, just coming in hot. Last couple of weeks he's got 19 targets overall. 13 catches, 12 catches overall. Last week, big week, 7 catches, 136 yards. So you like to see that value there. Playing really well the past few weeks. The consistency's there. Playing San Francisco, could bottle up the receiver, should be a little bit more opportunity. You got Brandon Cook still banged up. Again, this is really just more of an opportunity play for me. I'm not really confident that he's going to go off for a ton of volume again, if he's going to go over 10 targets. But I could see, 6 to 8 targets, 5 to 7 catches, somewhere in that mix for, 50 to 60 yards, and maybe he lands a touchdown. But again, these are some deeper plays. Give me 6 catches, 58 yards, and a touchdown. I think he can come down with that this week. Has 12 catches and a touchdown in the last 2 games. Think he can get about half of that maybe this week. So let's see what he can do. I like the matchup against San Francisco. San Francisco only giving up like the 5th fewest points to the tight end position. But with Goff and company, Goff is throwing for a ton of yards. Like I said, they could bottle up the receivers and really just force Goff to go to some options underneath that are not Cooper Kupp. So next up, Jeff Swain, another opportunity play here. O'Shaughnessy is out for the year for Jacksonville. Minshew has shown some favoritism throwing to the tight end position in the red zone. So I think there's some opportunity there. Again, do I think he's going to go off for a big 8 to 10 catch day? No. But I do think that he could get somewhere in like the 4 to 5 catch range, somewhere in the 35 to 55 yards, and maybe a touchdown, just because Minshew has shown that he is looking that way and he's looking for the open man. And if they are bottling the receivers early on, really choking out DJ Chark and D.D. Westbrook, there could be even more play for Jeff Swain, but I don't expect big volume there. Again, just a middle of the road guy that I see as a high end touchdown dependent play for sure. Next up, Jimmy Graham, absolutely starting these guys with Devontae Adams not practicing, most likely going to be out again this week, saying that he's going to take all the time that he needs to get healthy, firing up the Jimmy Graham, MVS, Geronimo Allison. Like Jimmy Graham a little bit more this week going up against Detroit. Think there will be more opportunity there and more of a slower, grinded out type of game. Not sure if we're going to be hitting the over there. I like the potential for high scoring, but I think that both sides are going to try to lean on the run. We saw Aaron Jones get a big workload last week. Jamal Williams is practicing, but I still see Aaron Jones having a strong presence this week, having a big workload despite him being back. And again, Graham last week, 3 for 3 catches, 41 yards. I think he'll get more volume this week up against Detroit. 7 to 8 targets, 5 to 7 catches, potentially even close to 75 yards and a touchdown. With Devontae Adams out, I think that Rodgers is going to get into the game where he's got to figure out who's going to be open here. MVS may be getting covered. Geronimo Allison may be getting locked up. Their secondary has been pretty decent actually recently. They were able to shut down Patrick Mahomes. They beat him at home. Detroit playing on the road on Monday night should be a good game. I like Jimmy Graham to get a touchdown, potentially as high as 75 yards. Like I said, you have these other guys here, the Hooper, Mark Andrews, Will Disley, Kelsey, Ertz, Kittle. You're absolutely firing them up. The Jeff Swain, probably the deepest play here. Jimmy Graham, I think, is probably an easy one with Devontae Adams out, and a lot of people are jumping to Gerald Everett, so I see him as a pretty consistent play. And Greg Olsen, I'm really confident in him, so fire him up, no question this week. That's it, guys. Those are my must starts. I wish I had another tight end or two for you, but man, just really abysmal this week. Really scared to plug a lot of these guys in with the matchups that they're on. But these guys I do like, so fire them up. This is what I got for this week. I hope you enjoyed. I'll be coming out with a Week 6 preview tomorrow, so be ready for that. Hit those bets last night, went 2 for 3. Hit the first half over in that game last night. Didn't take the whole game. Took the first half over at 27.5. Hit the over on that fumble touchdown return by the Giants. Thank you, G-Men. That was nice of you. Appreciate that. Hit the 5.5 over on the Caps and Preds and missed on a Hilliman 13 carry game by 2 carries. 2 out of 3. Still profit. Still took it to the hizzy. Hope you guys did it too. Have a good rest of your day. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care, and I'll see you next time. it.